Hey, Abe, welcome to Crosswalk Talk. Thanks for joining me.
Hey man, good to be here.
Abe Bueno-Jallad, who portrays Big James in The Chosen, is our guest. You're preparing to film season six, just as season five is landing on Prime Video beginning June 15th. As we speak, I believe you're in California,
I am in
where you
California
live.
currently.
Yeah, yeah. You've been on this for multiple seasons, Abe. What are your
Yeah.
emotions right now as you guys approach these final two seasons?
Uh, I think the brain starts to do this thing where hey now, like yeah, that sort of thing. Like, is this over? But nonetheless, season six is requiring an intense focus. And I kind of say this every year, but every year it proves to be true, unlike we've never seen before. But I can really say that that ambiance is palpable right now, as we're going into the almost second half of filming season six. But as season five is making its way and breaking all sorts of new barriers for us, I mean, it's really such a pleasure that we're going to be on Amazon now.
Yeah.
Uh, and that the rest of the show is already on Amazon. I'm kind of glad that we found one home. We've been so fortunate to have so many homes, but it's really great to be focused in one place so that people are like, oh, if you go there, that's where you get this, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so really excited, man. I think it's going to be cool to have a sort of historical television event, even though we've started in that world and then sort of managed to, don't ask me how, somehow break into the theatrical world. But here we are, Michael, man. What a journey.
It's good to be able when somebody says what's it on, it's good to not think, oh well, it's on Prime Video. It's on
Yeah,
Prime Video.
yeah.
That's what you can tell people. You don't have to stutter and think, is it still on that show? That's
Right,
that
right.
platform. It's like a family reunion when you guys get together, isn't it? Because you're getting ready to
Yeah.
film season six. Would you call it a family?
Yeah, I would call it a family. This season, we're past the moments where Jesus is gathering disciples. So I think what was so beautiful about filming earlier seasons is that we really were like one big family, and then it would just like, who are we gonna add on next? Who are we gonna add on next? And it'd be like, hey, welcome to the family. But now it's like everybody's kind of, things are getting a little tough. People gotta stay down. Don't let yourself be seen too much. So it feels like that in the filming as well, right? We feel fractured. We feel, yeah, we feel disjointed.
Yeah, it's my understanding that you joined The Chosen in season two.
Right.
How did you get involved in The Chosen, and why did you want to get involved?
Well, I had been auditioning since season one, and my agents had sent me the audition, and it was like there's always like a thing when they send an audition that shoots outside of the state. It might not always be financially prudent to take that job. But when I read the script, I was like, no, I'm definitely gonna audition for this. So I ended up that was the first of four auditions. So I ended up I was like always a bridesmaid, never a bride sort of thing. And then, I just pretty much got a call one day and they were like, "Hey, we really don't even need you to read for Big James. We're familiar with your work. We think you can do it. We believe in you. Let's go." And that was the beginning of that journey.
Okay, so you tried out for other roles
Oh yeah.
and someone else was chosen. Are you
I'm
allowed to
not
say
gonna
that?
say
Or
what
okay,
roles out of
okay.
respect to those brilliant actors.
Yeah, yeah, but you finally landed a big one. You're well known among Chosen fans and among the public. Um, how has James' character changed as this series has progressed?
I think it's so cool to look at things. Let's just look at like anchors in the Bible. We got sons of thunder, right? It's a very big moment. And then we have this like massive rejection when they ask to be in the left and the right hand. And then we have John who becomes like the apostle of love, so to speak. So, I mean, imagine that journey from going into sons of thunder who don't understand why they have to like, love the Samaritans to wanting to be at his left and right hand, still kind of that growth that both the naivete and the initiative that they're trying to take. And so I have tried to develop a more open, a more vulnerable version of Big James from what we saw in season two. I think if you look at my performance in season two, it's real sharp. I'm ready to go at any moment. We see a lot of that again in season three. Season four, I definitely tried to like I said, find that grounded space for James. Some things might never change. James might always try and be the protector of Jesus when the moment calls for it, or unfortunately when the moment doesn't call for it.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find that space that will show character growth, even if there's some of the traits that we recognize over and over again, such as his penchant for, you know, getting rough and tough when the time calls for it.
Yeah. Why do you think The Chosen has become such a global phenomenon?
I think it's
What is so unique about it?
I think it's this cool braid or a really beautiful rope that sort of transcends entertainment, but then is also grounded by the fact that it's entertainment. I don't think that anybody is confused about what's in their Bible versus what's in the show. And if they are, then that's great. It'll bring questions that can be solved by the book. So I feel like we've sort of stumbled into this realm accidentally or coincidentally or godcidentally, however you want to look at it, where people are saying that's a show about my faith. I would say it's just a show that happens to be about your faith. But the story is transcendent. And I think that's what we're experiencing with this show, doing the material and trying to allocate some sort of authentic cinematic perspective, which is not easy, by the way. We
Right.
don't get everything right. We're not going to make everyone happy. Um, and we're very clear about that. But nonetheless, it is turned into this phenomenon that almost doesn't make sense for a television show that's created in America to be highly desired in foreign countries and the likes of which we have not seen. And the sector has grown because of what we've done. I mean, you can look at the David, you can look at Netflix's
Yeah.
Mary. I mean, I'd like to think that we're Coca-Cola and everybody else is like trying to the respect to the Pepsi drinkers.
Hey, I'm curious, Abe, when you did find out you were portraying James,
Mhm.
did you go to the Bible and read about this Apostle James, or did you
Course,
just
of
okay?
course. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
yeah,
it's kind of amazing that well, first of all, I got to be honest, I don't think I'd ever, and still to this day, I think right now these last 5 years represent the most investigation that I've ever done into the Bible. Both, I also looked at the Old Testament because that's the only reference that James would have, right? James wouldn't know the New Testament. He's sort of receiving that covenant as we're experiencing as
yeah,
we're experiencing Jesus. So took me back into the Old Testament. I was like, okay, so this is kind of the frame of reference that we have. And then what? Right? So yeah, but James I always kind of like if I want a quick refresh, I'll just go to Luke. And then like if there's specific moments in the show that are biblically referenced, I'll just go ahead and see is it in Matthew? Is it in John? Where can we cross-reference this sort of thing so I can kind of get a different feel for it? And even Matthew and John are written such I'd say, and I'm talking if John is like a more circular treatise, while Matthew is like more linear, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of I mean, the fact that I can say that now, you know, I'm
That's
sure
for.
I would make some Sunday school people happy. They're like, he'll never learn.
Let's briefly talk about your background. You were in the mental health field, I believe, and
Mhm.
you landed in filmmaking somehow.
I was all
Not filmmaking, but acting. Go ahead.
Acting. Yeah, I was always an actor, but I never am just an actor. I'm also a human, and I'm someone who has great consideration and interest in, I'll say, anthropological studies of communities. So I started from a linguistic background, doing like historical research, and then I kind of wanted to get a little more up close and personal. So I went into mental and behavioral health research. And I was not doing the research, but I was assisting. I love the research process. I love understanding what works. And this is very different from a scientific method. When you're studying populations of people, there's going to be a lot of cracks. There's a lot of gray. There's not so much black and white. So yeah, that was a great journey, and I think it's lend itself into my acting very well. I've seen all sorts of people in the
Mm.
worst of the down and out. And I got to really be up close with them and ask them about their story and what they were experiencing, and then track them and be alongside them for 6 months and watch some people really get themselves out of it. It was very inspiring to me. It kind of showed me where I could do that in my own life.
I'm assuming you want to stay in this acting field, though.
Oh, I mean,
Eh,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm 12 years deep into it at this
So,
point.
so what types of projects do you want to, be involved in the future?
Look, this is such a treat to be involved in this show that's about the first century. I think I would love to stay on the historical route, historical dramas, and then like this other thing that's very obvious. So most sci-fis actually are based off of historical dramas, and then they're just put into the future, and sort of. So I would like to see sci-fi a little bit. I guess if I'm talking about, maybe representing people that look like me, maybe even a doctor drama,
Mm.
something like that. Honestly, the world is open to me, but ultimately, I'm also looking beyond acting more into filmmaking. I took some chances and got together a bunch of people and made my first the first film that I wrote, directed, and no, sorry, I wrote, produced, and acted in. So it was a very big learning experience for me, but I'm nonetheless moving in that direction as well. So I'm all in on being an artist, Michael.